Hello Gothamites and welcome to another video of Spotlight on Gotham, a series in which we review each crew for the Batman miniatures game. My name is Discourse and we will be continuing our examination of the Joker crew today by exploring both the Jared Leto and the Heath Ledger miniatures, and of course the henchmen that come with them. These models are the most radically different Joker types, as one may expect, as they are each based on a radically different interpretation of the Joker character. So without further ado, we first come to the Jared Leto Joker. This is a more dangerous, combat-oriented version of the Joker compared to some of the others that we have seen before. This Joker is the most expensive version, and at first blush it's hard to see why. His stats are pretty standard Joker. He comes with 4 attack, 4 defense, 8 willpower, 8 endurance, though he is a little faster than other Jokers with movement 10. He comes with Exhaustive Planner that allows him to cancel a single resource card played by the opponent once per game, which is very powerful and technically very rich. Of course, this depends somewhat on how your opponent plays, but it can prevent a critical card from swinging the game in the favour of your opponent, or especially frustrate certain crews like Two-Face, who like to play a lot of resource cards. His real hidden cost is the Elite Cosplayer's trait. This allows him to take the cosplayer models that he comes bundled with in his box set. While all Jokers can take one Elite Cosplayer, Leto can take as many as he wants. The most valuable ones that he can take are probably the Grin twins. These are incredibly efficient and very powerful models, but we'll discuss them when it comes time to review them. Suffice to say, however, that this is a major reason why Jared Leto is so expensive. He comes with the Follow Me special action as well, which adds a nice bit of mobility to an otherwise slow crew. And he comes with the Intimidate trait, which can be pretty powerful against some models, though usually this will only work against enemy henchmen. He has the Mobster passive, which gives him an additional attack die when striking outnumbered opponents, and this will be key to maximizing his offensive power. You'll want to ensure that he is always striking alongside his goons. He comes with Psycho as well, which is fine, though it will rarely be too impactful. Survivor is a nice passive skill. It essentially gives Jared Leto a 5+ invulnerability save when he would otherwise die. This is a nice upside-only ability, and you'll be really happy for it when it goes off, but it's not consistent enough to rely on. True Love Harley Quinn is quite nice as well, because in my experience, Harley Quinn is such an aggressive and quick model that she will tend to be removed from the board relatively early on in the game, so this is likely to give Leto an additional attack and willpower. A major trait missing, however, is that while he comes with Chaos Agent, like all the Jokers, he does not come with the Trickster trait. This means that you'll need to assign an Audacity marker to him at the beginning of the round. This isn't a huge deal, as you will more than likely want to assign an Audacity to your boss most of the time anyway, but it's just something to bear in mind and be conscious of during Phase 2, as it's so unusual for a Joker model. His pink gun is not impressive. Rate of fire 3 if accurate is good, but it only deals a single blood stun damage, which is the weakest firearm damage up profile there is. His baton is nice as it comes with double stun damage, and it's handy so he can consistently knock out enemies with this as well, especially when you consider that he'll be rolling an extra die with mobster most of the time. If you've maneuvered him correctly, of course. Overall, he's a nice, different style of Joker, though I do consider him to be a little overcosted for what he brings as a boss. Now we come to the Grin twins. They both have the same stats and traits, but they are armed with different complementary weapons and come with slightly different reputation costs. The first is Mr. Grin, Black. He is the cheaper of the two, coming in at 17 reputation. He has 4 willpower, 5 endurance, 3 attack, and 3 defense. These are solid stats for a 17 reputation model, though they don't set the world on fire. He comes with the Desensitized trait, however, that adds a nice bit of survivability against fellow low stun damage models. He comes with the Elite Cosplayer, which we'll see on all the other cosplayers as well. The essence of this means that only Jared Leto can take more than one cosplayer. And this is very important when it comes to the Grin twins, because the next trait that this model has is the Grin twins keyword that gives him +1 to attack, defense, and willpower when there is another Grin twin with this trait. This means that for 17 reputation, you get a 4 attack, 4 defense, 5 willpower model. These are the stats of a model that should cost about double the reputation cost of this, and because both Grin twins have this trait, you are doubling the efficiency of both models. As such, if you are going to take one Grin twin, you should always take the other. This does suffer from the fact that when one Grin twin is removed, the other gets weaker, but that's a minor inconvenience compared to how much reputation you're saving with both these models. The Black Grin twin comes armed with a basic single blood knife, which is not impressive until you realise that this is an attack 4 model now. For 17 reputation, this is an absolute steal. And now we come to the White Grin twin. This model is the exact same as the Black Grin twin, except he comes in at a little more reputation at 19. Accordingly, he has a better weapon in the form of brass knuckles. These deal 2 stun damage like reinforced gloves, and they come with no other extra traits. This is definitely the stronger of the 2 Grin twins. It's just another amazing model. And here we have Panda Man. Panda Man does have some niche applications against acrobat heavy lists like the Teen Titans. Generally speaking, however, he is too weak with defense 2 for a 40 reputation model. Hardened doesn't do enough to protect him at this reputation cost, and his panda costume means that if he is ever knocked out or suffers a critical hit, then he's completely negated. This is not good on any model, never mind a 40 reputation one. Paranoid is fine, and Panda Man has enough willpower and endurance that you might actually get this off a few times in a game. However, all it does is succeed in bringing him up to where he should be, at 3 defense. This is situationally useful, so it doesn't do enough to justify his basic low defense. He of course comes with Elite Cosplayer, so you'll only ever see him taken as a single tech pick in other non-Jared Leto Joker lists. This is fine, because Panda Man is in reality a simple counter pick to other acrobat heavy lists. He does come with a great weapon. His modified assault rifle deals double blood, 1 stun, so the damage of a Tommy gun, but it is equipped with a red dot that allows him to reroll 1 field roll, and also a silencer, which prohibits the use of dodging to avoid his shots. This is why this model is so great against acrobats, it directly counters them. I'd take this model if I played against a lot of acrobat heavy lists, but otherwise he's not worth the points, even with the great gun and consistent shooting. For an all-purpose shooter, I'd rather have someone like Rasta Clown from the Clown Party box, or perhaps even the next model that we'll come to. The Eyeball Man. I'm actually a big fan of this model. He comes with Cyclops, appropriately enough for a giant eyeball, and this gives him a -1 to his ranged attack rolls when shooting at something more than 8 inches away. To compensate for this, however, he does have OCD, which gives him +1 to his attack dice rolls. These counteract each other, except when shooting at something within 8 inches. When he's firing his gun at close range, he's just all upside. He also comes with Street Guy, which is a nice defensive trait that forces your opponent to reroll 1 successful hit if you have cover. Cover is very generous in this game because you count as being in cover if a portion of your base is covered by terrain, so you'll find that you do have cover more often than not. He's armed with the standard carbine profile. I really like this gun. I think I just really enjoy rolling lots of dice, so I may be pretty biased. The gun deals only 1 blood damage per hit, but you get to roll 5 dice, so you're likely to get a few through. It also comes with Assault, which makes it relatively mobile, although -1 to 5 dice is pretty painful. Although obviously this can be compensated for by his OCD if he's shooting at close range. His stats are pretty standard. He has a nice 5 willpower, 5 endurance profile, and 3 defense, so he's pretty well statted for a 27 reputation model, and $350 is a fair amount of funding for his carbine. He definitely has a place in a lot of Joker lists, even outside of Leto, as an aggressive gun platform that you want to close in on the enemy with. And here we have the Goat Head Priest. This is another very aggressive piece from the Leto box, and he's also very unique. He comes with 5 willpower, 5 endurance, 3 defense, and this looks a little weak for 35 reputation, but it's not terrible. He has anger management as a mental disorder. This means when he performs a ranged attack, he must always attack the closest model in line of sight, including his allies. So this means that we'll probably not want this model to act as our backline fire support, as he'll simply fire on our own crew. He comes with Dirty Fighter, which allows him to shoot his gun in base contact with an enemy, and he even gets +1 to his ranged attack rolls when firing on a model in base contact with him. He finds it hard to benefit from this, however, because his gun is an LMG that deals 2 blood damage and has a rate of fire of 2, but it also has explosive. This means you'll be placing a template over your target and hitting everything under the template, including you, and you'll be rolling a strength die, so you won't get the benefit from the +1 to attack dice rolls, as they don't apply to strength die. The context in which Dirty Fighter is valuable is a context where you're shooting yourself and you've suffered some reduction in your attack dice, so you're rolling a standard attack die for each attack. This is a pretty rough spot to be in. You'll want to be very aggressive with this model to guarantee that enemy pieces are the closest that he can fire at, but he can be abused by your opponent when you consider that he's putting down templates over his targets. Goathead Priest is a relatively clunky model that you'll have to work really hard with to make the most out of, and he doesn't reward you enough for how he's constrained. I think he's a fun model, and he is worth taking if you want to experience the joy of a rate of fire 2 explosive template weapon, but he's not going to add a lot to most lists. Now, in contrast with the Jared Leto Joker, we have a cheaper version of the Joker in the form of Heath Ledger. He comes with the standard 8 willpower, 8 endurance, 4 attack and 4 defense Joker profile, which is actually very nice considering he only costs CD2 reputation. He of course comes with the Trickster and Chaos Agent traits, like all the Jokers. One of the more notable specials that he has is the They're Cheap ability, which gives a free ammo to every single henchman in the crew. This is a very fun ability, and it feels very powerful, which is great. I don't think that in practice it's necessary to have in a crew, because ultimately the Joker henchmen that come with guns are really well costed and pretty efficient already. So this adds an extra ammo to them, which is just gravy. This probably won't win you any games, and I'd contend that'll already result in any more shooting by your goons because most of the Joker henchmen are so easily dispatched. But it feels fun, it's a nice rule, and it's very thematic. Henchman Bomb is a template weapon that is one use only and requires you to kill one of your own henchmen. On the face of it, this isn't very appealing, but 3 blood damage is the critical threshold where template weapons begin to look really good. If this was a blood stun, for example, you'd probably never use it. In conjunction with this is the fact that most of your henchmen should be pretty weak and vulnerable to death generally anyway. If you've positioned a henchman to be able to hit more than one person with this, then he's probably dead next turn. I quite like this ability, and I think it can be pretty clutch in certain situations. Goad is a nice utility ability that may help prevent the scoring of cards by your opponent, but it's probably not something you'll get a lot of use out of every turn. Luck is an all-round nice utility that gives him an extra bit of consistency in either attack or defense. Psycho is fine, as mentioned previously, but with 8 willpower, it would be pretty difficult to reduce his willpower pool to an impactful state anyway. Undercover is nice, as it may allow you to deploy him in a more advantageous position. However, you'll tend to want him to be close to your other henchmen, such that they can benefit from his Inspire bubble. He comes with the automatic gun, which has a rate of fire 4 and deals a single blood stun damage per hit. This is a good weapon, though it's short-ranged and isn't as impressive as some of the other 3 blood pistols that other Jokers come with. Likewise, he also comes with a single blood knife, which is pretty poor. The biggest upside to this model is that he's pretty cheap. He does bring a few specials, but nothing as consistently strong as the other versions of Joker. This is fine, however, because the Joker isn't a big compact character anyway, and taking Ledger means that you can probably fit in another henchman to a crew that you otherwise wouldn't be able to if you were to take one of the more traditional Joker models. He definitely fits a valid playstyle. Chuckles. Chuckles is a 23 reputation $300 model with 5 willpower, 5 endurance, 2 attack, and 3 defense. His attack profile is underwhelming, but the 3 defense and 5 willpower endurance is nice for 23 reputation. He comes with bipolar, which can actually be a weakness, as enervating 1 is probably a bigger downside than a free effort is an upside. But there's not much of a gap between the two. Backpack is a great ability that allows him to reveal once per activation without spending an action. This can help enable cards like Disturbance or So Long It's Been a Gas, and generally just frustrate your opponent's plans with their suspect markers. It comes with Expendable, which can be really useful for helping you get less relevant cards out of your hand. It's always nice to be rewarded for using models. This model is probably the one model that keys off really well with their cheap ability from Heath Ledger. He comes with an amazing 4 rate of fire, double blood gun, but its major downside is that it only has 1 ammo. You'll want to use Ledger's They're Cheap on the turn you plan on firing this gun, definitely, because the $300 for 1 shot isn't super efficient. This is doubly important for Chuckles when you remember his attack of 2 makes him very weak with his fists, so you'll want to be firing the gun as often as possible. Overall, he's a pretty good model equipped with a very, very nice gun. If you can make his ammo work for him, then he's definitely worth taking. And now we come to Grumpy. Grumpy comes at 24 reputation, $300 with 5 willpower endurance, 2 attack, and 3 defense. So again, he has a pretty poor standard attack, but fine defense for 24 reputation. He has Expendable and Backpack too, so he's equipped with some nice traits. He comes with Paranoid, which is definitely a better mental disorder than Bipolar, but he'll be a little hard-pressed to take advantage of it more often than not. If he does get the +1 to defense, then it can be pretty big. He comes with a standard automatic gun, which is fine, though not particularly impressive. Has a rate of fire of 3 with a single blood stun, so it's okay. It's light and has a short range, so it's fine for shooting up close and personal. Grumpy is a fine model, but he's not particularly impressive. And here's Happy. Happy is a slightly more expensive model than the previous two, coming in at 26 reputation, but he costs a bit less in terms of funding. He comes with the standard Ledger Henchman stat line of 5 endurance, 5 willpower, and 2 attack, 3 defense, so again a weak attack profile. He has anger management, which is a pretty big weakness, so if he wants to make a ranged attack, he must attack the closest model in sight, friend or foe. He comes again with the great expendable trait, and he has the special grapple gun, which is actually really good for him. It can help you get him into a position where anger management doesn't hurt him too badly. He comes with the grapple gun weapon, which has a mechanical 3+ strength die rather than a 2+ firearm die, but it can push its targets away. It is rate of fire 1, which is poor, but it has double stun, single blood, so it is a nice damage profile. The model is pretty good. The grapple gun is really nice for getting to rooftops and other positions you otherwise couldn't reach in a traditional Joker list. However, he's not an all-purpose model, but he is a fine technical piece. And timely enough, we have the Joker's bus driver model. This comes in at 25 reputation and bucks the Ledger henchman trend of having 2 attack and 3 defense. Instead, he has 3 attack and 3 defense alongside his 5 willpower and 5 endurance. Great! He does lose backpack unfortunately, but he is compensated for this with bodyguard. This trait is super important to help defend the Joker, so if you don't want to take Thug 6, then this model is almost mandatory. He has expendable as well, which is nice, and pyromania, which honestly doesn't come up often, though it is a nice upside if you happen to be playing under the Gotham in Flames condition. He has timely arrival, which means that he essentially teleports onto the map in the second phase, reflecting his, well, boss. You might initially think that this isn't too good for a bodyguard model because it is mandatory and you tend to want your bodyguard to be in 4 inches of your boss. But in my experience, it's very unlikely that your boss is going to take damage in the first round, so this is just all upside usually. His shotgun is good, it deals double stun, single blood, with a single rate of fire of 1, and it is medium range, so it's a nice support gun. Overall, this model is pretty strong, though he is a little bit more expensive than Thug 6, which does count against him. On the other hand, he is able to provide support better than Thug 6 because he is armed with a ranged weapon. So, there we have both the Ledger and Leto boxes. Neither are as integral to building a crew as the Clown Party or Back to Gotham sets, but they add a lot of options to your available crews. If you can only pick up one box and had to choose between these two, I'd probably recommend the Leto box just because it comes with a full crew. But honestly, I think you're buying these for their respective Jokers and maybe 2 of the other models in each, so pick the one that looks the most fun for you. Thank you for joining me on another Spotlight in Gotham. It has, as always, been a pleasure. In the next video, we will complete our review of the Joker models, where we will look at the Archie and Biker set, as well as the other non-box set models like Bud and Lou and the various Harley Quinn models. So I hope you join me for that, and have a pleasant evening.